Hello everyone, welcome back to another video about the series that I am currently reading, and this one is actually going to be about the series that I have decided to DNF since the last time I made a video about the series that I decided to DNF. So these are essentially series that I DNF'd before the start of 2025, or right at the beginning. So I made kind of these lists at the very beginning of 2025, and I'm filming this in February, so it's a little bit later after I made the list, but these are, how many do I have on here? I have 10 series that I have decided to DNF. That's kind of a perfect little number. Usually 10 is my go-to, and this was completely accidental because I don't always like choose, okay, I'm doing 10 for the video. It's just however many I have decided to DNF. So some of these I think are going to make me a little bit unpopular. There are some that I might get a little bit of flack for, and that's okay. If you love these series, absolutely adore them. I love that for you. I wanted to love so many of these series so much, and they just were not for me. Some of them I kind of knew going in that there was a small chance, but I still gave it a try, and it wasn't. And some of them I was so sure I was going to love, and I just didn't. So yeah, I have my list. I keep a little bit of a tracker on here it's just like on an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of my series and where I am with them. And I have my list of DNFs here that we're going to go through. So let's just jump right into it. The first one on this list is the Crown of Feathers trilogy by Nikki Palprato. I read the first 2 books in this series, and I just don't care, right? It's not that it was a bad series. I didn't dislike it. I just don't really have any desire to keep going with it. And that's a big thing for me this year. If I don't have a desire to continue a series, I'm gonna DNF it. That's something I'm trying to hold myself to more. And that's like essentially this series. It is a YA fantasy series that's set in a world where we have Phoenix Riders, and there is this young girl who wants to be a Phoenix Rider, and we're following her and her experience in this, and she has her sister where they had tried to like steal these eggs and have them hatch, and it was an interesting story and setup and premise, but I found it like a little bit predictable, and I didn't really love the way that we were given the history of this world, honestly, and just overall I wasn't really invested in it. Even though the story has a really cool premise, I think that a lot of people really would love it, and it was interesting in theory. I just didn't feel interested, so I'm not going to keep going with it, even though I only have 1 book left. It's okay. The next series I am so sad to put on here, because when it first came out, I was positive that this was going to be a series I absolutely adored, and that's the Between Earth and Sky series by Rebecca Roanhorse, the first one being Black Sun. Now, this series had such a cool premise. We have this boy who's been brought up to essentially be some sort of a catalyst in this huge celestial event that was going to be happening, and he was the one that was going to make it be what it was prophesied to be. We were also following this woman who was a captain of a ship, and this woman who was the leader of this religion that was preparing for this celestial event. And I didn't like the like religious leader character. I thought she was really not the smartest one out there, and she just like didn't have the savvy, and it bugged me a lot. I liked the story, like the premise of the man that we were following and his story, and I liked his character, and I liked his kind of like the relationship between him and the boat captain. I thought that they had some good interactions, but overall it just wasn't for me, you know? The ending was super abrupt. It felt really rushed and not well done. I didn't like the religious leader main character. I didn't like where her story ended up going, because like I saw it coming a mile off, and she was just so not smart about it. Overall, I just was annoyed with so much of the stuff that was done in the book, and I heard that the second book was significantly worse than the first one. Even people who adored the first book did not seem to like the second book. I don't know anyone who liked the second book. If you do, please let me know. But yeah, that's kind of a big thing for me, is if I don't really love the first one and then I hear bad reviews of the second one, I don't really want to continue on with it. So yeah, really sad about that one, but is what it is. This next one might make a few people a little upset, but that is the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. It has like a long way to a small angry planet, I think is what the first one is called. Like, it has a really long title, and it had such great reviews, and I just didn't really care. I feel like the first one was fine as a standalone, and I don't need to continue, and I don't care enough to continue. So this is really another one where it's like, man, there was nothing really wrong with it. I liked it okay, but I just didn't have any investment in it, and the first one was totally fine as a standalone, so I am going to be good with it as a standalone. This next one is very much along the same lines, and that is Middlegame by Shannon McGuire. And it's along the same lines in the sense that it is fine as a standalone. I actually loved Middlegame. I thought it was really good. I was really interested in it. It was very intriguing. I liked the writing and the premise of it. It was just all a really good time for me. But I read it thinking it was a standalone, and I was done. And so when they came out that there were sequels to it, I just did not feel the need to read them. I loved the first one, and sometimes I feel when a book was written and it felt like a standalone and then they come out with sequels, I don't like the sequels, and then it ruins the original book. So that's kind of my decision on that one. Is I'm very happy with the first book and where it was, and I don't need more in this world. The first one was good. I'm not going to continue on. Oh, I think this next one is probably one of the saddest ones for me, because this one I knew I was going to love it, like knew it. There was not a doubt in my mind, and that is the Blood Gift duology, I think, by N.E. Davenport. The first one is just called The Blood Gift, and this one had such a cool premise. It's this girl who has these magical abilities in this world where, like, having these particular ones that she has is, like, illegal, and it makes her, like, they will kill her, right? It's not just bad, like, you are the enemy. And she has to go, she's in this school to train up for, like, this military group, and she has to go through these trials and pass them in order to be in this group of elite warriors. Ooh, computer's going black. And this seems like the perfect premise for me. It's something I would absolutely love, and I just was annoyed with it. One of my biggest complaints, I think, in this one is how I didn't, like, there was so many things that didn't make sense, right? I don't like it when things just, like, logically don't work well. Plus, I felt like it was really rushed. It felt like it should have been two different books to me, and it wasn't, and so I didn't really like the style of the writing. I started reading the second book, actually, and I just didn't care. I think I was over halfway through the second book and I just stopped reading it. And then months later, I realized I never finished it. And so I just say, you know what, that's probably a sign that I just don't care enough to finish it. So I didn't, and I won't. And I am really, really sad because I thought I would love that series and I just didn't. Our next series is Lore of the Wilds. I actually don't know what author this is by, but this is a book that I got because it was in a book box. I think it was the first Fairy Loot Romantasy book that was in the Romantasy subscription, and I think that the Fairy Loot Special Edition is stunning. It is one of the most beautiful books that I own, but I just don't care. Again, this is another one where it was fine. I didn't really have a problem with it. I just didn't care enough about it to keep going. I can see it being a romantasy, and I don't want to go in that direction, I think is one of my main things. I'm not in favor of this romance that is blossoming, and that I think is also one of the big things here, is that's not a direction I want to go with it. And if we had the same premise not in a romantasy, I probably would have liked it more. But knowing that it is a romantasy, that's the direction we're probably going to be going with it, I don't care enough to want to continue on with it. I think that the second book might already be out, or it's at least announced, because I've like seen the cover for it, which is gorgeous. It's beautiful. I'm not continuing with this one. I need to DNF more, and this is one that's gotta go. What is that one? I don't even know what this one is. I need to look it up. Oh, okay. This next series is the Gods Beyond the Skies series by Molly X. Chang, and the first book in the series is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods. I read this book last year and really did not like it. Like, this is one where I really didn't like the first book, so I definitely am not continuing on with the series. This isn't like an ambivalent feeling. I disliked the first book in this series, and it was just not good. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the world building. I did not like our main character. I didn't like the romance that was blooming in here. I didn't like the explanations for things. I didn't think that there was logical things going on as well. And overall, just like, this book was not for me, and I did not enjoy it. So I will not be continuing on with the series. Definitely. Like, this isn't a maybe. This is 100% no. Oh, this next one is one that I'm actually really sad I didn't like because it was a gift, and that is the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I could not with this book. Honestly, the female main character I felt like was the epitome of not like other girls girl, which sometimes can be done fine, but in this one was just obnoxious. The male main character was a jerk. He was not nice. He was rude. Hearing his thoughts was disturbing. I did not want to read from his perspective. I did not see how she would ever like him. Like, what was this relationship? I don't understand. I don't get it. I could not get on board with it. This was just not a good time for me, and I will not be continuing on with this series. This next one's another that's kind of like a I don't care and I don't think it was well done series, and that is the Assistant to the Villain series. I read the first book and have only read the first book, will not be continuing on with the series. I didn't like it. Like, it was kind of boring. I think there were, again, some logical things that just didn't work for me. I didn't see the draw between the two main characters, which are clearly going to be the main love interests of this story. And overall, it just wasn't gripping. It wasn't exciting, and it was boring for me, and also really obvious. Like, did we not see that coming? I don't know. It didn't work for me. Definitely not going to be continuing on with it. And I really love that other people love it, but I think part of it too was the humor was not, it didn't hit for me. Like, it wasn't bad, right? Sometimes the humor, I'm like, oh, this was cringe. Like, sometimes it was cringe, but a lot of times it just didn't hit. And I think if you liked the humor, you probably would like this more. And the final one on this list is one that I'm quite shocked about. And there's a little bit of embarrassment around it because I have 2 special edition sets of this series, and I'm DNFing it. And that is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. Oh, I'm really sad. Do you know how many people have said that this is one of their favorite series of all time? That they just could not get enough of the 3rd book. They were crying. They were so emotionally invested and wrecked by that book. I wanted that. I wanted that so much. But I just didn't really get into the first one. You know, like, this one I will say is probably one that I was kind of intrigued by it, and I could see myself reading more than the other ones. Like, if someone asked me to buddy read it with them in the future and they really, really wanted me to, like, right, I could be convinced. But I just didn't care that much. I didn't love the setting, and I think that is probably my main problem with it. I'm not a huge fan of, like, urban fantasy when there are things like cars and cell phones and all the technology that we have with just like some magic sprinkled in. And I also don't tend to love the like mafia stories. Those aren't ones that I really enjoy. And this one is essentially a fantasy story told within a fictional city that's kind of like based on a real one, but it has these like mob families and kind of it's their struggle between each other. And that's just not something I really like in books. It's not a setting and a premise that I enjoy that much. And so I'm not going to keep going with it. And this one I feel really bad about because I know that so many people absolutely love it. And it was well written. And I think that the characters were well done. Like this one, I can see why people love it. It just didn't work for me, unfortunately. I'm really sad about it. But yeah, those are the 10 series that I'm going to be DNFing at this point in my life. Let me know what series you have decided to give up on. And if there are any of these that you're 1,000,000% sure that I will like if I read the next book, I maybe could be convinced if enough people say it in the comments. But yeah, let me know what you think, what you're feeling about these, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.